Coming from the Truspace, we ain't entertaining neighbors. I don't give a fuck what you say. Found the universal coochie, planting seeds and birds fruit. Now I'm really looking juicy. Welcome to the Truspace. Yeah, bitch, welcome to the Truspace. Welcome to the Truspace. Yeah, bitch, welcome to the Truspace. What's good, y'all? My name is Open Book. This is my partner.
Hey guys, this is Hearth.
Yeah, and we just wanted to break down meditation real quick, and what we know about it, and why it's so beneficial, and how it all ties in with astrology too. So yeah, can kind of get in it, and it's crazy how like how that's all everybody has been talking about in terms of these religions, and maybe not necessarily specifically meditation, even though it is that, but the inner world, like referring to like all of these jinns and deities and all of that. They're depicting the inner world.
It's almost like they're debating about different state of beings and giving different names, and like this is the kind of type of energy.
Exactly, and that's really what it was. Imagine if we, like we talked about it before, like imagine we just scrapped the Gemini and just said Kanye. You might as well, it means the same motherfucking thing, if you get what I mean, because he acts like the quintessential Gemini. So imagine us, let's say I'm about to go Kanye in a situation. Instead of saying act like a Gemini, you would say Kanye. That would become a reference, and that's basically what they did, and it may not even actually been an actual person. Probably was, but it's more of the idea of that can be encapsulated within this persona or within this character, but depicting the inner world like that. um Everybody has been talking about that, and that's all that they're talking about. But then niggas, the orthodox and the serious niggas, um started taking things literally, and things got hidden, and it was probably done on a deliberate tip too. But the real core essence of these things is really mapping out the inner world, and look at the effect of it developing into these religions, and how they rule people's inner world, and they shape their inner world, which inevitably spills out into the external. But the essence of what they're talking about is this internal world. And meditation is really our keys and guides to get into understanding these inner worlds. And you almost don't want to use the word meditation anymore because of all of the connotations that other people put on it and how they interpret it. I was talking to Millie's dad the other day. He asked me a question. He was like, uh, if I had, because we were talking to that really rich friend that he has, that billionaire shorty I was telling you about, and she was like, if you did have like, say $1 million or $20 million at your disposal, what would you do? And he was talking about how hard it would be to conceptualize, and man, was he right. When he was saying that, I'm like, immediately, I'm like, nigga, I'm gonna save the whole motherfucking world if somebody gives me fucking $20 million. You best believe I'm about to turn shit up. And he was like, how? Huh? I would do. And I was like, wait, then what about how? It took more thought, but yeah, I mentioned wanting to do something in meditation, or have a place where I can create an environment where meditation's really easy, and have people to come there and facilitate, this understanding of this in the world, and teach astrology and all of that type of stuff. And he said, when I said meditation, he was like, oh, mindfulness. And I was like, mindfulness? I'm like,
This is interesting because the word itself lead you into conception about meditation that's not true, which is paying attention to something when you meditate, having your mind paying attention to thoughts and feelings, which is literally against meditation. And the whole point of meditation is to detach away from your thoughts, masking on your feelings, emotion, so you can have a lighter spaceship mentality, so you can float to the higher dimensions, so you can hear and gain certain messages, but based on certain words and ways of explaining meditation, especially in Western society, when we consider like psychologists and all they do is basically give words to different state of beings that people enter. That's what literally that's what they call mental illness. Just give it different names, sigils, and stuff like that. But all of it different state of beings that we all go through and things of that nature. But like the whole point of meditation is really to detach away from certain thoughts and feelings that are so stuck in your mind based on the fact that you obviously experienced previous life and you accumulated a lot of karma, subconscious memory. That's why you have a subconscious mind. Every time you close your eyes and you try to be in your own internal world, like you see images, you see movies, you hear sounds, it all connect to certain things. You might even connect certain feelings with different civilization or different things you see in the external world and shit like that. But that's what meditation is like, really about diving deeper into your inner realm, and astrology give you almost like the perfect blueprint in by which it lay it out in terms of divisions, and it divided so specifically. When you learn astrology, you learning about how to meditate because you're learning about your body, which is kind of crazy. But this is also the separation between Western and Vedic, and they don't want you to ever put it together, the mental part and the physical part, and so on and so
Mm-hmm.
forth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like the essence of it really is awareness and consciousness,
Mm-hmm,
which is what we are. So with that general understanding, now you can understand that, take away the spookism from it and realize that we're doing this all the time. And that's what
mm-hmm,
maybe that's what people in this Western mindset is reacting to, the
mm-hmm,
expansiveness of it, and maybe it's overwhelming, so you put it in a category so you can better contain it or better understand certain things, um
mm-hmm,
because we literally do this every day, and in terms of where we
mm-hmm.
give our awareness, it's crazy. They even say when you're watching TV, you enter into theta, or whatever they call it, brainwave states, the really low
Mm-hmm.
one, the ones
Mm-hmm.
that you would get into in deep level meditation when we watch
Mm-hmm.
TV. So
Mm-hmm.
what's programming us? And look how much attention you pay it when you're really into it.
And it's also like when you were born, like from I think year 1 to year 7, like that's the most year where you're priming your subconscious, where people could fill you up easily. And I think what people do, they take you to school, make you watch TV. Like this is where you're getting programmed and things of that nature. And like a meditation could really make you tap into like your childhood kind of development in a sense, if you're could become very aware on how basically how you came the person you are by basically doing arithmetic and going back like in the process that led you to who
Hmm.
you are. You like finding basically the starting point. That's what meditation for. Finding the starting point so you don't get lost in any more other people's starting point within yourself. Like this is
Absolutely.
where you can find like Agent Smith planted within yourself too, and then where you're
Absolutely.
gonna have like internal wars that plays out as you fighting with people and things like that nature.
Absolutely. Like, and it's in everything. Remember,
Mm-hmm.
Naruto at the fucking waterfall, and he had to fight his shadow self, and he ended the fight or beat his shadow self, who was identical to him. The punches the same time. He beat him by
Mm-hmm.
giving the nigga a hug. But it was, but it was symbolic of, him understanding the shadow side of himself, and coming to an accepting of it. This is the inner world that you really dive into, and this is that's those are the type of opportunities, whether they take shape and form of a real experience like that, or just having that result of resolving, you know the shadow aspects of yourself, or coming into an acceptance and dealing with these type of things. The only way you can do that is really by diving deeper into meditation. And you even look at the word
Mm-hmm.
meditation, it's coming from the word mediate, being like it's like the middle ground, if you understand what we mean, between
Mm-hmm.
worlds. And this is why calling it like the key to the esoteric realm, key to the inner world. And that's what it is, where you start to mediate between the different states of beings.
Mm-hmm. And this is where you could like literally get into what do they mean by biblical allegories. Like when Cedro's speaking about fighting your shadow self, you could see that as a Cain and Abel story. You like
Jacob
witnessing your own
wrestling
mentality
with
is fighting.
God.
Exactly, Abraham, your first idea, and how did it promise God, aka your
He
dream? What
got
do you
God in the
believe in?
headlock
And,
and DDT the nigga, suplex the nigga.
like I feel like meditation fits perfectly with like the chapter of Genesis, and like that's what you're kind of doing like with meditation, like priming what you're gonna give birth to, or like what you're gonna start, like what's your Genesis, like that type of energy.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely, and it's mentioned so much through the Bible. Like that's Jesus's whole message, which is funny. How that happened, it's crazy when you I completely turned off. I guess everybody, because Christianity is really one of the more modern religions. So, or what everybody's into
Mm-hmm.
now, or what's
Mm-hmm.
dominant in the world now. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of resist that when you go on to learning more about things, especially coming from a Christian background, learning about astrology and them demonizing all of these things. You start to move away from these things. And then I started looking at the Old Testament, and, at the olden times and the ancient ways, and started zeroing in on that. But then recently, like with Bill Donahue, opening me up to the New Testament, and you look at what Jesus actually said, it's it's crazy. It's like, how can you build a whole institution and run for the last 2,000 years off
Mm-hmm.
with people not really understanding the real words of Jesus? It had to have been different when people were more religious, and how they manipulated the masses in terms of, and then a lot of people couldn't read at a certain point, so it's probably
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
barrier as well. But what he actually said is like is on some different shit. Like the church, like Jesus said so much things that the church is against, which is baffling because it's in the fucking book.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what he was talking about when he was talking about the kingdom of heaven. What was Jesus's whole spiel? The kingdom of God is within you. That he, when he died, if you were to look for him, he's within you. That archetype is within you. He talked about um to get to the heaven to get to heaven, to cast your net on the right side and stuff like that. He's talking about unlocking the right side of your brain, the creative, expansive, more intuitive side of yourself, where you get to
Mm-hmm.
experience the full awakening of your mind. um and Bill Donahue goes in on things. I think I told you already
Mm-hmm.
about it before. Talk about the how you pay 10%
Mm-hmm. And,
to the
mm-hmm.
church, and
Mm-hmm.
that's your 10% of your brain.
Mm-hmm. It makes perfect sense because what you're gonna realize with meditation is what you're gonna try to correlate is like your right brain and your left brain, and how people like interpret it. Some people interpret it as your brain split in twos, or some people would incorporate your whole body as a right brain and left brain. They would say your lower body is your like right brain, where you bring all your desires from, but your left brain is your torso to all the way to your head, where you externalize and able to explain why you have certain desires, aka what goes inside of you. So with meditation, it's almost like you're diving deeper into your internal realm, your right brain, dealing with these things, your fire and water. So when you communicate, start to logically speak, you know how to do it properly, aka because you dealt with your desires and things of that nature. If you don't do that properly, what's gonna happen is you end up gonna prosecute your own self-expression, aka you're gonna allow your self-expression, your creativity go to your head, and this is where you're gonna get prosecuted and things of that nature. This is why with meditation you learn how to calm down, cool down all the blood flow, that self-expression, that's creativity, and figure out a better way to move it through your body, which is gonna play out you associating with other people. You learn more about the 11th house, what's opposite to the fifth house, which is very important if you wanna move further in your life. So when you learn about all this energy work, it will play out physically too. That type of shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
And just being open to receiving. This is the essence behind prayer. And like people don't realize like that shit's real. Prayer is real. But the essence
Mm-hmm.
of it is the same essence of meditation in terms of placing your intention on things, on something,
Mm-hmm.
and letting it go. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you're praying to God, you're putting it in God's hands. So it's like an essence of release. This is what they were tapping into in terms of their form of meditation and how they were using it. But that stuff is very powerful. And look at how people would feel lighter, after they would pray and stuff like that. Maybe have a little bit more clarity. Not all of it is necessarily completely genuine in the best way of going about it, but um, there's definitely results that come from it. It's because they tap into that aspect of it. Awareness is a
Mm-hmm.
powerful thing.
Like that's something back then people did not want, like specifically the church, because you gotta realize when like Christianity began, it was seen like almost like a heretic movement, because like almost all of them were trying to seek the kingdom of God, which is them separating out of the Roman government, and like that's what would look bad for the Roman government because they're losing citizens and things of that
Niggas
nature.
becoming
But this is where
hippies.
Catholic. Exactly. This is where Catholicism comes in, and like Catholicism it means like universal, or the name of the like it's the name of the church, the name of the chair that the bishop sits on. So you could think about it. They figured out a way of directing all those Christians' energies into like a single point, aka our father who could sits in the seat of all Christians and like guide that energy.
Hmm.
But like what's so interesting about their concept of faith, it's very big in the New Testament and in their world, especially in Europe, because you got to think about where they live. It's we're in the winter season where they can experience more death, the very extreme level of harshness. They don't know if they're gonna survive. So you can see how the concept of having faith or the sun gonna rise again played a major part in their world. And why do they love it and
They love spring.
appreciate it?
They're like,
Where
he came back.
exact
He came.
ex
We thought this nigga was gone, yo.
and exactly, where people from other countries, like other places, they wouldn't get that, or things like, or people from other religions, they wouldn't understand why they viewing Jesus the Son movement that way, and why do they interpret it this way, which is very important topic, because a lot of arguments about people, uh, books and holy writings, it comes from the fact they're all trying to interpret the stars. So
Yeah.
they're not arguing about is his name Jesus or Yeshua. They're arguing about why did you guys name it Jesus based upon your geographical location where you guys are witnessing certain movement of stars and writing things. But we are in a different geographical location. So we're interpreting things from a different perspective. So like using it your way may not work for us perfectly. That type of argument, like when you get deep into meditation, that's what kind of lead into.
Absolutely. And then this is why you'll find the commonalities between all of the different figures because they're perceiving the same energy,
Mm-hmm.
say the fifth house, Leo, or solar type energy that exists within us, but through different perspectives. Which the Hindus seen it
Mm-hmm.
as what's my youth's name? Krishna,
Krishna.
Krishna,
The
Krishna,
the
Christ,
mm-hmm.
Krishna, Siddhartha, which is
Mm-hmm.
Buddha, is it's literally all the same thing. What he trying to achieve nirvana, and that's which was within you. It's the exact same story as Jesus. Over here in the Americas, we
Mm-hmm.
had
Mm-hmm.
Quetzalcoatl. And Quetzalcoatl himself have fucking 15 ass names: Ku Klux Klan, Quasimoto, and all different types of shit. But also
Mm-hmm.
solar deity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But all
Apollo.
these energies were everywhere. Like Yeah, in India they have Shiva, but in Middle East they we use the term Sab'a for number seven. But then if you know Shiva in India is the seventh deity, it's the representative of Saturn, and then you get the number seven here in Arabic how we pronounce it. It literally means Saturn, and then when you go maybe into like Africa, you see Osiris and things of that nature, dealing with the death of the sun and things like that. You see them just trying to interpretate energies from different point of views, and these the type of arguments they're getting into in the third dimensional world and things like that. And but when you get deep into meditation, you don't really attach to all these systems, and you realize the starting point of all of them.
Exactly, where you
Mm-hmm.
dive into the core essence, because all of these things are corresponding within you as well. With this as above,
Mm-hmm.
so below, it is so real, and this is why astrology works. Just take a moment and look like how they showed us. That's not necessarily how atoms look, and you know, it's like how can you fucking even argue about those concepts about things that we can't see? But look at the model of an atom and tell me that's not a solar system, or the essence of it, if you get what I mean. So look at how you, just to give you a perspective of how all the building blocks replicate each other, just like how your DNA is contained within every cell that's in your body, even though it expresses itself in a different way. We are all living things, including the
Mm-hmm.
planets, including everything is embedded with the same
Mm-hmm.
DNA. In that essence, you know,
Mm-hmm.
same you know, we're all following around the same galactic center, or this our energy came from source from the same single point, if you get what I mean. So this as above so below is very true. And just like how there's seven planets, we have, and then you can make the argument that there's more planets and all of that stuff. But just like how the seven visible planets correspond with the seven chakras that you have within your body, and that those are the most dominant aspects that you have the planets inside
Mm-hmm.
of you, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And they express themselves through your body, your physical structure, and through your personal dynamics and interacting
Mm-hmm.
with the world, as do they act their physical external representations affect you in an external world. It's like as above, so below. It's like it's the same thing. So when you meditate, you tap
Mm-hmm.
into more into the internal source of what the essence of these planets come from, and less to the external influences, aka the filters of the world that these energies have to go through, like geographical location, like cultural interpretation, like all of these other filters, and you just get to the bare essence of things that are contained within you.
Mm-hmm. I will really teach you about how your body flow properly, and like once you tap into like your internal world, you learn how to shut off certain external or physical what do you call it, like stimulus that's causing you to produce certain negative hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, and things like
Hmm.
that. But actually learn how to tap into good hormones by controlling your internal world and things like that. For example, if Scorpio is your eighth house, you have Mars, your root chakra. So if you know how to almost like cleanse that area, aka detoxify out of your vulnerabilities, maybe toxic accumulation, because we're right now talking about the right brain and things like that. If the right brain is toxic, everything that's come out from the left brain is gonna be complete bullshit. That's how you know. This is why people are full of shit. They're full of shit because they're internally full of shit too, and things like that. But that goes back to astrology, where Mars is connected to your eighth house, reproductive organs, but it's also get externalized through your first house, your brain and nervous system, and things like that. But that's how once you get deep into astrology, like meditation gets easier.
Absolutely. And then you can start tackling your own interpersonal dynamics, because you understand the filters that they're passing through, in terms of, you know, what it is that you would need to let go, or what emotions can help you tap into things. Like just like what we were talking about in the beginning, a lot of people interpret things as like you're supposed to be thinking about shit. That is not the goal of
No, no.
meditation,
Mm-hmm.
or to dive into this internal world. Everything you're thinking about is going through an external filter. You were given language. If you are thinking in a language, then that's not the kingdom of God. That's not your highest
Mm,
point that equates your essence.
mm,
Before language even developed to
mm,
what it was today, language was just a collection of images. We think in images. We this is why fire represents
mm.
your higher mind. But
Mm, but you could also see how that helps them do witchcraft, because if they connect these state of beings, these energies with different astrology, and then represent different letters, sigils, and then put that in the external world and make you connect that with different like energies. Now they could put the letters in different words and patterns as you see it in the physical world. You're getting
mhm.
programmed all the way to the point that this is why the Hebrew letters connect to the chromosomes, aka 22 letters, 22 DNA
Chromosomes,
strands or whatever. But
bruh.
as they typing all their but think about, as they typing all their scripts, it's almost like they're tying in your different chromosomes
And then
together, literally
Yahweh,
building a new mind for you.
Yahweh numerically is the spacing of the DNA too. That's interesting. Remember I was telling you that the
But
integral
you gonna
numerology.
pay.
Sorry.
And also, Yahweh means your head, and you understand a lot of the beginning of these people in the Eastern continent. They put a lot of awareness into the first house, so a lot of things became externalized from that point. They started to praise like their mind. They're seeing their spaceship, aka their head, as Jerusalem and things like that, because all their awareness is going to that area. And once you take these type of science, aka like neurological science, but put in like biblical allegories, and take it to like Western society, and then take out the esoteric, you get like science. But like you wouldn't get the science without like understanding the background
Yeah.
first, if you get to kind of what I'm saying.
hmm without the
But
experience
like,
of things.
but all the way to the point that Jordan Peterson will make a lot of biblical talk because he's so inspired by all these allegories, because he could see how it fits everywhere, and this is why a lot of people see him lost and things of that nature. But that like those stories like changed like he's a true Christian to the heart. Like I don't care what he says.
I get what you mean because Christianity, people don't
Mm-hmm.
realize Christianity is Western civilization. I don't hear a difference, regardless.
Like
Look at how people are reacting
like
now.
like a lot of people.
In terms of they want the government to come and fix all of their problems. Sounds like you want Jesus to take the wheel, literally. Look how people calling Donald Trump
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, or treating him like the second coming and shit like that. We're just primed with that story.
Mm-hmm.
We fucking love that story so much that we allowed different shapes and characters. Look at all people. Look how big the Lion King was. Look how big. Like all the different
Mm-hmm.
iterations of that fucking story. Where looking for a savior
Mm-hmm.
in most of the situations that we're in, which is really what they were trying to drive home with the concept of Jesus.
Exactly, and things like that. But like from a biology point of view, you could really like the story of Jesus from a biology point of view. You could understand how to like live it much more better, because you're gonna see how it's all about knowing how to move your blood flow properly,
Hmm
so you don't end up like crucifying yourself, aka getting a headache, or expressing yourself, getting like a pain in your head and things of that nature. But a lot of people wouldn't associate it like with biology unless they dive deeper enough in the story where they play out these energies.
I get what you mean. And then not knowing enough
Mm,
about our bodies as well. And this leads to what
exactly.
meditation does. You would ask people a lot of certain things or mention certain things that you would think that we all experience, but we don't in terms of like even eating better and start eating better at the beginning of that course, especially when you just start eating more salad or some fiber or some shit like that, you start shitting up yourself, and then you start realizing, like, wow, I didn't have like regular bowel movements or something like that before or something like that. Just that
Mm-hmm.
example is, you never noticed that, or you weren't necessarily aware of how constipated, say, you were before, or that certain things made you feel sick, or certain things got you sick. You didn't put two and two together like that before. But once more awareness is start being brought into the situation, now you start to notice these things, and a lot of times clarity, being stepping away from certain situations, starts to bring more clarity on your previous stated beings. That's why we go to drugs a lot of the times, and people have psychological breakthroughs with drugs where they break them out of those habitual patterns so they can step outside and see them for what it is. But you can achieve that very same level of awareness through meditation. It just takes practice. But it's more of a natural aspect. I feel like mushrooms and LSD and all of these things, maybe it's good to go through or to have an experience in terms of clearing that slate, like what I was talking about before, using it like that, like shamanically, like ritualistically. I can see how it wouldn't be as detrimental. It can help you break out of certain boxes and stuff like that. But the DMT is literally released by your own pineal gland. No drug in the world that provides an effect in your body is not triggering a hormonal response that already existed in your body. Heroin and all of the opioids and stuff like that, you already had opioids in your body. I think they're called endorphins or something like that. Those are your body's physiology form of opium and stuff like that. And it's the love feeling stuff, and that's what people say that they feel, with heroin. But it's all your internal biology showing you that the bigger more correspondence with as above so below. So it's like, and how your mind is your body. So as you start having more awareness of your psychological dynamic, your emotional dynamic through clearing that energy through meditation and broadening your awareness like that, you start to have more control of your mind and your thoughts, but you also have more control of your chemistry, your biological chemistry. It goes hand in hand. It's not separate.
Exactly. You can't separate the two whatsoever. If anything, the best thing you could do is like combine astrology, natal chart, transit, like with your meditation sessions. Like that's powerful because you're gonna start like go within your internal world. It's not like pinpointing the mentalities and it's like sniping them and things like, and it becomes like a real video games and like things like that. And you realize how badly they treated you because how they took the external world, the physical world, chopped it into multiple things that have internal representation, and then they sold it to you. But the fact that you don't know how to tap into these things within yourself, and you look for so many external sources that represent these state of beings, these feelings, these thoughts, it's like almost like you being a crackhead and you not knowing how to build your own church, your own tabernacle, aka your own like Moses law, your own commandments, these type of energies. And if you can't guide yourself internally, it's impossible for you to guide yourself externally. Someone who's lost in the external world is 100% lost in the internal world. There's no debating
Absolutely.
about it. If you speak to me about Christianity, I know you're somewhere around the sun. If you speak to me about Islam, I know you're somewhere around the moon. If you're speaking to me about Judaism, I know maybe you're somewhere around Saturn. Like these type of things. And the more talented, intuitive you are, you'll be able to pinpoint people easily, all the way to the how physically they look and how that corresponds to certain mental state of beings and
Hmm.
things like that.
You'd probably be able to get a person's natal chart certain vibe, and start feeling a little bit more than the sun. You'll know where their Mars be at and Venus be at, but just by being around a
Mm,
person and interacting with them
mm,
for that high level of awareness. But that internal world connected with astrology, I love how you said that, because I've been looking at that inner guide meditation that I was telling you about. I forgot the guy's name. Edwin Steinbach, but a guy wrote a book called Inner Guide Meditation, which I really love the idea. And he was an
mm,
astrologer. And it's funny, I related it to a lot because he was talking about in his practice, he wanted to take things to another level where he kind of felt like he was stuck, you know, giving people a roadmap, telling them about their personal dynamics, but not having a lot of solutions for how to get them to get over it, or how they can go about correcting their internal world. He's just telling them about their internal world and shit like that. He's like, how are we going to and this was like in the 60s. This is an old book, or maybe even earlier. So they're diving into Jungian type psychology. And Carl Jung is a very interesting guy. He talks a lot about occultism and
Mm-hmm.
astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And in his, we got the
He's
subconscious
he.
mind, introvert, extrovert. We got all these terms from him.
Mhm. And he's like he's a big person bringing like psychology to the Western world. I think it's like a Leo, but a 3 degree Leo and things like that. But I think one of the main points that make maybe how people practice astrology in different worlds, it deal obviously with the geographical locations they are in, because how other people interpret meditation is completely different. Some people interpret meditation with dancing and like zooming into that, or people assume meditation just sitting down and just completely relaxing like in India, or people will view meditation as you could do it all the time as you do normal things. So like don't feel discouraged as the way people interpret meditation, by understand how we're trying to describe you're supposed to learn how to control your internal world, but you could figure out different ways of practicing it through the physical world. Like one of my favorite meditations is just exercise, which a lot of people may not like, but like that might work for me since I have a lot of earth energy, fire energy. So the more I externalize that, the more I might feel relaxed. But regular meditation might also work for me, but you gotta figure out what works for you and what different tools might pique your interest in terms of putting you in a meditative state. Drugs, dancing, eating, watching TV shows, but the least what you don't want to do is allow another person to put you in a meditative state where they're gonna program your subconscious mind for you,
Or yeah, you're very
like sweet
mhm.
talking.
And or where you're very aware of your environment and how that's being influenced, or how your mind's being influenced. But exactly, the essence of all of the
Mm-hmm.
things that you were talking about is awareness. Whether it be working out, you're developing awareness in specific body parts, making certain connections, so you're becoming aware.
Mm-hmm.
And just you becoming more aware about something, developing a skill or something, learning more about yourself, more emotional independence or security, whatever it may be, you develop more ability to be aware. So once you learn something, say you learn a skill and you really dived in and you learn piano, it's going to be so much
Mm-hmm.
easier to learn not only other instruments, but other things in general, because of the amount of awareness that you're able to generate
Mm-hmm.
through doing that. You fine tune it and broaden
Mm-hmm.
it. And I feel maybe more of a sit down meditation where you're literally not thinking of anything, you're just being aware of being aware, is a good starting point. But once you become more adept, you can do that in any situation, if you get what I mean. And just being aware, it kind of really centers you in the feeling of being aware, the feeling of being an observer, the feeling of receiving information, not trying to externalize and push out information, but receiving information. Meditation goes into something that you can do anywhere at any time, whether you're stuck in traffic, like what Harris was saying, whether you're eating or watching TV, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. Just take the
Mm-hmm.
note and time to start receiving, to stop externalizing all of these energies, and to start receiving, to bring yourself into balance, to start connecting with higher energies that can be there. But mastering your environment is a quick way to do that. Or is one of the best ways to do that. And that's why it's so hard to do these things in society. Like that's why I had to get the fuck out of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
The too big, too much people, too much noise, too much stuff going on, too much light pollution, bro. Like when I was tree planting, I
Mm-hmm.
felt so lied to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there was no way there was this many stars in the sky, and I didn't know about it. I felt so deceived. Like when I was cherry picking too, I seen Venus every morning. We got up early with cherry picking, and you can see why it's called the rising star and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't understand those aspects
Cause
of the light pollution.
mm-hmm. Exactly. I remember also seeing Venus, especially because I work early in the morning, and you'd be easy to put it. You'd be like, "Why did they call like Venus, Lucifer, the light bringer?" And you'd be sort of able to connect that point, these points together. Okay, it's the most brighter star star before we go in the morning and things like that. And you can see that literally with every single star, and you might even realize that how that leads you into internal world in terms of when you see your desires, they're very bright, so you go after them, and that's how a lot of people are actually Luciferian. We practice so much Venus energy in an inverted way, Baphomet, that we don't even realize it. It's actually scary, but it leads to hormonal dysfunction. If you have a hormonal dysfunction, you're letting me know like you worship Lucifer, you worship the light, even though it's
But
fucked up.
it's
I know.
so true. And look at the more correspondences that happen that early in the morning. It's Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces, you know. And say if you were to wake up during those times,
Mm, mm,
you would have more of a lucid dream. And it's funny talking about Lucifer. You would have a lucid dream. You know what I mean? That's funny.
mm. And in the science, Western society, they call that 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. like your REM cycle, where you get the most deepest theta. It's the same thing as a star, the same thing as a chakra, just different names to different points in the earth or geographical location.
Exactly. I think Venus and Earth are sisters to a degree, and that there's a deep connection, you know. Whereas Mars being the brother, you know, he's
Mm-hmm,
probably gonna protect you, but it's not. You don't look and see yourself in your brother if you're a little girl. You know what I mean? But your older sister, you will look and see yourself in your older sister. So there's a little dynamic. You guys have to remember that Earth is a living being, and once you start paying more attention, you'll feel its energy,
mm-hmm,
for real. And that's kind of how the chakras are oriented, and that's the energy that you're digesting, the energy of your environment. Look at how Earth regulates its internal environment too. By it creates its own atmosphere and it has its own aura per se. It creates its own type of field. And even though environments outside of that atmosphere can be volatile and stuff like that, it develops a system of how to acclimate that and incorporate it into useful things, aka UV rays or life that exists on Earth. It's like, oh yeah, we can take this. If we take this and make sugar out of it and do photosynthesis, you know, it won't be a detriment, and you know, we can make things positive and stuff like that. So there's a lot you can learn about meditation by just observing Earth and nature and how it's doing things and that level of awareness as well. But you start to notice these things with these levels of awareness, and you start to see more. Like we're blind, like we don't see shit, we don't see anything, we don't hear anything either, and we don't smell anything either. We That's why I
mm-hmm.
don't like the term clairvoyance or psychics, because there's so much negative connotations on that. But it's really whatever anybody's talking about is just a heightened form of our own senses of what we're already doing. Clairvoyants aren't going to tell you that, you know, some mystical experience or whatever. They're going to tell you that they heard something or that they seen something. And when you understand the essence of but just like what we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about before, people don't know what their bodies are. We You think light
Oh,
is bouncing
mm-hmm.
off of things and hitting you, but
that
that's
that that the
it's neurochemicals and electrical signals that's taking information and painting a picture in your mind in the back of your head. It's not direct experience.
Exactly. That's why you can't trust the physical body, the senses, but also you can't trust like the mind, the mentality that that you've been building, but also they build it for you. Because those two, it's almost like even if you hear her Dole talks about it, he's against the physical body and against the mind because they some in some way, shape, or form they could trap your
Yeah,
awareness, aka your spirit. That's the whole point of meditation is to free the spirit so it can float up by decreasing how much attention you put into certain state of beings, feelings, ideas, and that plays up to the physical dimension as you placing yourself in basically orientating yourself in different ways too. But it all starts internally first. You being your own like sun, knowing your own solar system, and then understanding everybody has a solar system, and then knowing how those collide together, and then that leads you to becoming like your own rabbi, guru, mental
absolutely.
pilot,
And
and so on
just
and so
the
forth.
awareness. Like so much people so much of our lives, I can't even separate myself from it, but so much of our lives is a set of subconscious assumptions that we just let slip by. But when you
Mm,
bring more awareness to a situation, you really start questioning things and asking yourself why. You feel a certain way, you're getting angry, take the time to ask yourself why and bring awareness. Those moments are meditation as well, and where you really have the opportunity to dive deep and broaden your awareness to bring more balance into your internal world. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Some people have trauma that they never really dealt
mm,
with, that is suppressed within them, that meditation can start bringing awareness to. And that's why, say certain things. A lot of times it would be your ego too that realizes that it would be hurt or be chipped off of if you were to dive deeper into meditation, if you were to dive deeper into broaden awareness, just bring more awareness to certain things. It will pull you out of certain situations, or make you act a certain way out of situations to avoid certain things. It's to protect that trauma, because
yo.
it's doing its job. It's trying to protect you and stuff like that. It's like your immune system starts to attack
Mm,
against you when it's supposed to be attacking invaders, but when there's disharmony in the body, it loses essence of that. It plays out in so many different realms of reality. I remember Dr. Ali said that even cells themselves on that level get dysfunctional in terms of, uncontrolled splitting or mitosis is not the natural way of cell division. It's
mm,
a stress response. And, it delusionally thinks by
mm,
multiplying itself that it's saving it, but it's actually weakening itself. So it's working against itself. More delusionary.
that makes perfect sense because you're diving deeper in your internal wall, programming it to create all type of physical
Absolutely.
results.
And
Yeah.
that inner guides meditation, I loved it because he applauded you. And that's what I was talking about, Carl Jung, because a lot of people in that camp, in that school of thought of psychology, use a concept of meditation called active imagination, where they were receiving information, but they
Mm,
let it play out as a situation in their mind, not trying to control it, but giving kind of like guidelines for things to play out through, which I thought was interesting. In terms of visualization and just seeing what your internal world would show you. So it's a different level of receiving, but I liked it. And he talked about the different archetypes that exist within you. He used the 22 major arcana and tarot, but aware that it also corresponds to the planets and to the zodiac signs, and having dialogue with
mm,
these entities, starting out with the sun, and receiving light and love from the sun, and healing light from the sun, and just
mm,
seeing what the sun archetype that exists within you would unconsciously say to you. I really like that idea of meditation, but he applauded you to have a guide, your true guide with you, which is like a concept that I'm understanding as you're creating your own internal guide. What does your true guide mean to you? And he says that whatever that looks and takes shape form as always corresponds with the ninth house, which is interesting. Him as being an astrologer, finding that correlation, your ninth house being your higher thing. And he would say that people's kind of false guides that would be more, ego driven and placating to that stuff would correspond to the third house, which is interesting because it would be the surroundings and stuff like that, and childhood upbringing and stuff like that. But
mm,
yeah,
mm,
you talked about having a true guide to pull you out of situations when you're dealing with an archetype, say the Pan card or the World card or the Devil card, or Capricorn, and you have suppressed energy in terms of authority or whatever it is that had happened. You know, um, kind of work you through that, and you can ask it for more guide. But those essence of exploring the
mm,
internal world using the framework of the major arcana, tarot, and astrology would lead to a whole lot of rectifying of the inner energies that is going on with your life, and a lot of understanding, whereas without those guidelines it's kind of more of a cesspool where more sensitivity is required for you and more time to go in depth into that stuff. And if society helped us, by not stressing us, making us work 8 hours a day, and having all of these different situations, we would actually, if we developed a culture and society that facilitated that give credence to that, we would have that ability. But feel like the guidelines of astrology really accelerate that. And remember, the seven chakras are just the seven planets, but embodied within you. So as you deal with those archetypes, that's what aligning your chakras mean.
Basically, aligning your mentalities exactly. I could definitely agree with what you're saying about having the active imagination part, and I could see why it played a major part in why people told stories, told allegories, because
Exactly.
these what happened inside of them, and the more they learn about these stories, the more they learn about the internal world. And it's funny how the more you dive deeper into, the more you see more into the story through time and things like that, which I find highly interesting. Well, I agree with the fact that you could see internal world, just how like astrology play out. You seeing your self expression as the sun rising every day, but your self expression you're not gonna see it all the time there. Again, remember you're the spirit observer. You can't get lost in the sun. Your solar plexus is gonna go up and it's gonna go down. It's gonna rise and it's gonna fall. This is why you can't get attached to it, but understand like the imaginative,
Yeah.
allegorical aspect while you're witnessing it.
Yeah.
If that even like
Absolutely.
makes
And
sense.
and this is what they were talking about too, in terms of the sacrificing of the lamb, and all of those aspects. If Jesus died on the cross, they're talking about not only meditation and the death of the ego, and moving to your higher self, your higher nature through meditation. The sun's mimicking all of that shit too, in terms of going through the Southern Cross constellation for while it's going to the winter solstice. For 3 days, the sun stays below this Southern Cross that I had to pass through. This is where the whole cross came from, and why you'll find Quetzalcoatl carrying the cross too, and also representing all four seasons and stuff like that. But it's the winter solstice, so it's already corresponding to, there's lots of levels of correspondence. But that's where the 3 days and resurrection comes from, because after the 25th, where we celebrate Christ Mass, the sun, that's when it starts moving up on that, and then Jesus comes back. He's reborn again. And then when spring comes, and now we know spring is coming. When spring comes, what? The sun rises from the east, right? The east and the right side. So there's exactly, so the right side of your
Easter.
brain, and exactly. That's why Jews have Passover. That's why Christians have Easter. This is what they're placating with. Wow, this is why Valentine's Day
Exactly,
is around
exactly.
there. Wait, no,
And
that's a
the
little bit
moment
earlier. Yeah, earlier.
And you could actually see with daily meditation, especially if you get deep into the transit too, you can see
Yeah.
how you feel different day to day, and actually dive it, dive deeper into what these people actually speaking about. What is Mars? What is Venus? What
Mm-hmm.
is Saturn? From an internal perspective, as you go throughout time, meditating, experiencing these different transit, and things like that, where you might actually learn your own interpretation, come up with your own words, come up with your own allegories, and that's gonna make you stand out in the external world because you dived so deep internally, you came out externally so different.
Absolutely. And people do this unconsciously. It's not random that, niggas will come out, a psychologist would say, oh, 12 archetypes. Some bitch ass nigga talking about, oh, I done developed a system, and shit like that. And it automatically goes to 12 or 10 in terms of the
Mm-hmm.
numbers of planets or something like that, or 7 or in terms of the visible planets. And then they break them down, and it's
Mm-hmm.
literally all of the planets, and
Mm-hmm.
all of the virtues and archetypes that the planets play out, divided up. Maybe they broke Venus up into two. but we know that it's fucking Venus. If you get what I mean. That's all there is to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely, yo. And after that, you could enjoy talking to people on how you can interpret these different energies. If anything, you could get lost with them because you're not gonna get lost because you got your own spaceship and things of that nature, and you're gonna help them almost maybe get out of it by the fact that you're not responding to
Hmm.
all what they're like representing to you, and that's gonna obviously put them in a like a train of thought to like, try to figure out why you're not going to that light
And maybe
they're
they'll
going
start to
into.
expand into higher possibilities, start tapping into that quantum realm. And it's crazy because this all happens physically in our body. This nirvana, this divinity, this that inner essence where your really entire self is expanding, like what it would feel like on a DMT trip or a mushroom trip, is very accessible when you broaden your awareness of your body. This is why you can't separate your mind from your body, why astrology is so important, why we should be studying and learning our dynamics and corresponding it with our body so we can
Mm,
free up all of these energies, because then you'll have control over that body.
mm,
Like, look at how we talk about your solar plexus. This is where a lot of people get stuck, in the solar plexus, using the bottom,
mm,
the feeling chakras, where you that's what happens when you don't feel safe, aka your root chakra, your survival, your instinct, your sacral, more of the
mm,
pleasure, and then your solar plexus, your will center. All of those, once you don't feel safe and you have to defend yourself, all of those are firing, and you don't get to go past into your heart center, the bridge to higher mentalities. And your heart center is where you really have to be open to new things, open to new experiences, open to relationships. You wanting to love and feel compassion, you want to connect. Connection is that essence for you to connect to higher will. That's why you'll find Jesus sometimes in pictures with him opening up his heart and stuff like that. Why in prayer
with the
you look
heart.
center
Mm-hmm,
within your
mm-hmm,
heart, because that's your
mm-hmm,
bridge to get your things to heaven, which is your
mm-hmm,
mind, your brain, and stuff like that. But look at how
mm-hmm.
you get stuck here. What comes out from your solar plexus? What hormones? Those are your adrenal glands. And adrenal glands can turn into adrenaline, giving you energy to exact your will in a situation. But adrenaline also can turn into a metabolite of cortisol, and then turn into negative hormones and stuff like that, or be a precursor to stress hormones. Adrenaline can really turn into stress hormones. But as you
Mm-hmm.
go up these different
Mm-hmm.
channels and you start hitting these different glands, what's here is your thyroid gland, which regulates your
Your
metabolism within your
thymus
body,
towards second house,
which is
exactly.
so Venus. Now you get to
Mm-hmm.
awareness brings you
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
control of these aspects, in terms of you'll be able to balance your own metabolism. You'll be able to channel your own adrenaline. What do you think a fighter's doing when they go into fights? Where they're channeling these energies from? It's inside of you. But literally, once you reach to your head, there's certain chemicals that get released that correspond with your pineal gland, your third eye. And when people are talking about, you can see more with these things, and it kind of corresponds with nighttime in your dreams, like when you become lucid and stuff like that. In nighttime, your pineal gland secretes melanin, which is your nighttime hormone, which relaxes your body, puts you into different brainwave states. But the more awareness you develop in your body, the deeper you go into meditation and can stay in certain brainwave levels without falling asleep, that melatonin, not melanin, what I say, melatonin, yeah, um, that melatonin starts to turn into different
Mm-hmm.
metabolites, and these metabolites are like anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, anti-everything. You'll start really healing your body from an inside out type level. Not only that, it turns it into um like DMT is one of the derivatives, comes from melatonin, and that your body can start to produce. So just to go and show you that you can induce your own DMT. So when people go into deep meditation and they tell you that they had a huge breakthrough, or they went to a different world, or they reached that level of ecstasy, aka or nirvana. They entered the kingdom of God and stuff like that. That's what they're talking about. But I feel like when you do it with shrooms or DMT, it's like it forces it on, and you don't get the metabolite along that ladder. Kind of reminds me of weed, where if you smoke just like shatter, or like the oil distillate, which is like 100% THC, it's different. You probably get, it's like crack, it's like another level where you get high as hell. But I found it that my body always craved bud, and people were telling me that it's because there's other cannabinoids and other chemicals that are inside of bud that our body responds to in terms of a high that channels certain things within our bodies, that you don't get all of that stuff with just the pure THC. And I think it's the same thing when you don't reach those elevated states of consciousness through your own awareness, and you do that from the external world. You miss that all of the other things that are anti-canceral, anti is literally healing your body from the inside out. So this is the real capabilities and possibilities that we have, that we can achieve through meditation.
You could really see how people like
Hmm.
Christians value the heart, like how CJ was speaking about it, just
In the
being in your
bosom.
heart, and how your heart is a
That's all
representation
they
of the
talked about.
warmest area within your body, and but exactly, but the heart, Jesus, gotta work with the Holy Spirit, which would be like a Mars, with sparking the desires, and then so you could go talk to the Father, which would be like Jupiter up here. So you learn how to bring the three trinities together, but then you didn't get lost, and Jews and Muslims telling you fuck the three trinities is one God. You understand? Oh yeah, these three mentals come together and create one thing. But you, and it's also the separation was always to bring them together. So
That's
there's no
facts.
debate for you. You fuck with
That's
everybody.
facts. And apparently, I remember you said it years ago, and I didn't take you serious, or it's not that I didn't take you
Mm-hmm.
serious. It just kind of went over my head. You mentioned about the acacia tree, and how Moses was talking to the bush, and you're like, what if he was getting high or hallucinating to the tree? And then it took like a Jewish guy, a rabbi, to start talking about bring notice to the acacia tree mentioned in the Bible. I started looking in the Bible. I'm like, why do they keep on mentioning acacia trees and shit like that? I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know what's going on. I'm like, that's the thinking. These niggas really got lost in the desert for 40 years. Are these niggas retarded? It's a 6 day walk. It's a 6 day walk from Egypt to Palestine, or the Holy Land. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, these niggas was chopped. So don't be like Moses and his followers, fucking doing it and being chopped. Be like the other niggas. Be like, what's his name? Joseph. Be like Joseph. Joseph was a interpreter of dreams. That's how he became the right hand man of Pharaoh, by interpreting dreams. So you see how they're talking about meditation in the Bible through
Mm-hmm.
these stories, through these archetypes. Through He was a diviner. He would put colored dyes in a cup of water and swish the motherfucker around, and then tell you your fortune based off of how the colors mixed, or whatever it is. This nigga's doing those so um, maybe that's referring to the four biles in the body and different mixtures and stuff like that. Who knows what type of level that may be? They're referring to, but he was a
Oh.
dream
Mm-hmm.
interpreter.
Mm-hmm. I definitely. I could see how all these allegories could represent also like different state of being. Like Joseph would be like that idea that help you to interpret your dream, or that spaceship you jump into when you want to understand more about your internal realm. And Pharaoh would be like maybe your virtue and principle that you jump into when you go to work to be more serious because you want to enslave the Hebrews, your desires and things like that, and so on and so forth. And you understand, oh, what is the left brain has to utilize the right brain, and then the right brain has to utilize the left brain. Why did Pharaoh tell kill all the Hebrew women? It would be like representation of your right brain, your desires, because obviously the left brain, your torso
Mm-hmm.
wants to control
Mm-hmm.
your left, your right brain.
I
Is
get what you
is this
mean,
this
and
constant
with
back
the
and forth?
correspondence saying your right brain may be like your lower chakras or your more emotional chakras. Those are your feelings, for sure. Look at how you can raise the kundalini and you know really bring these lower energies up into that spot. Maybe the higher chakras like what it is, aka Egypt likes where it is, and they don't want the children of Israel, or you know like coming from the root chakra, say to come up. But that's what you're right. And Joseph was made the right hand man of Pharaoh, the right hand man on the right side of your brain, the intuitive
Oh,
self. That's
oh,
what Egypt is.
oh.
Egypt is your left side of the
Mm,
brain. The Pharaoh's the left side
mm,
of your brain,
mm,
and you know the right. Even the fucking
mm,
Pharaoh head thing.
mm,
They were talking about it was a snake and a fucking
mm.
bird. The feathered serpent. I
And
don't
a
know why
bird,
niggas
a falcon.
argue about
Yeah,
this
yeah,
shit.
yeah,
How's that
yeah,
not the plum serpent? How
yeah.
are they not Americans? Or how is that not a global empire that would have conquered the world at some point to spread these religions when they all have the same thing? You go up in India and they're going to go and tell you about some Naga people there, some Nagas, some serpent kings and stuff like that. And then we just
Mm-hmm.
all dismiss that because they're all just retarded as dumbass old people,
Mm-hmm.
and we only listen to what was invented in the last 50 years.
And then when you look at this country flags, you'll be like, why are you guys using stars, energies in your flags? You look at Sri Lanka flag, it has the lion, a Leo. You look at certain Middle Eastern countries, they have the falcon, Heru. And you'd be
Dead
like, oh,
ass,
what all
yeah.
these coincidences are coming from? But you realize, because these things represent, like, literally the geographical they are where they seeing that energy. And that symbol is so important for them. If you look at all the European countries, I think a lot of their logos, symbols, just dealing with different colors of the cross and shit like that.
And look at the
The,
ability
yeah, I
or
think, yeah.
the witchcraft possible for having a symbol for an entire nation. You know, that's just mad opening. So and look at how they choose instead of coming up with their own things, they're using all of these things to channel our subconscious. So they're using bear crosses, bear stars, bear all of these things. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess we can
Mm-hmm.
end it at that. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah, and
guys, appreciate you watching the video. Give us a like and subscribe. Check out our website, truespace.biz. Check out our Instagram, truespace_. And yeah, thanks for your time, guys. Peace out.
thank you guys. Take care.